So I started the process of ride wrapping my Orbea Rise, and I'm about halfway through this. I've got the full kit, which comprises 16 pieces to wrap the frame. Done 8, got 8 to go. And I'm not going to show you the ride wrap process. I'll do a little bit, but I'm going to give you some tips that I've discovered while doing this. In the instructions, they talk about doing 3 drops of solution into your spray bottle, but 3 drops is hard to measure. If you look online, you'll see a lot of people have commented that it's hard to measure 3 drops. In the instructions, it says 3 drops is 0.5 of a milliliter. So solution to that is, if you're not the cook of the house and you have a spouse, go raid the kitchen, look for a measuring spoon. This is a 0.63 milliliter measuring spoon. Put your drops in there to just below the top and you'll have about half a milliliter. It's going to be much more accurate than trying to guess what you're doing by putting drops in. Because what I found is key is that your slip solution, which you're doing a 1 liter bottle like this, is key to the whole process. Too slip and you'll have problems with adhesion. Too watery is going to stick too soon. So that's like tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to have a workspace beside your bike. I'm doing it here in my basement. So I've got a card table with it all laid out with the guide. I've got the microfiber cloth that they give you. For this, again, it's good to break it up and perhaps do this over 2 evenings, because this will get saturated and get wet, and then if you wait a day, it'll give you a chance to dry out. But familiarize yourself with the process. The other thing that I found was pretty key is that you'll get to places like here where you're pushing ride wrap in some fairly difficult to fit places. Like, you can probably not even see the ride wrap there, but when you're doing this, it's going to be kind of wet, and while you can move some of the moisture away, the key thing is to use like a heat gun or hairdryer. Do this on a low heat setting. You don't want it to get so hot that it burns you, but warm up the piece and that'll help dry it out, and then you can like move your finger to help it adhere. And that was a key learning lesson as I started going through this process. The other thing is just take your time and patience. If it looks like you're getting air bubbles, pull the piece, spray it down, reapply. I'm not going to show you all that. If you want instructions, go to the RideWrap website. They have some videos out there on how to do this. Read their instructions. But overall, the process seemed intimidating at first, but once you start going through it, you'll start on the back end, which some of these are the most fiddly pieces going. Now, mine's not perfect. I do have the odd flaw. There's like one here. There's a tight bubble there, but that's minor. Also as well, you will have some places where you've got existing protection on your frame, like here. In that case, I decided to leave it on the bike. I figure more is better, and it's also in part of the bike where it's not really obvious and noticeable. If you've got more obvious places, you might want to remove it. The other place I've noticed, and I haven't got to it yet, there is protection here where this potentially would rub. So there's protection on the seat tube, and there's going to be protection on the down tube. I haven't decided if I'm going to remove that yet. I think I might just leave it in there and accept the fact that there will be a slight air gap on the protection once it's applied. So let's get wrapping. So they recommend spraying down the sheet. Oh yeah, other tip, and I forgot to do this, wet your fingers with the slip solution as well. That'll help. Then spray down the bottle, spray down the bike. You should do that before applying the solution. So this is an example where it's real tricky. This will move around quite easily, but part of the trick is just figuring out exactly where that goes. And it's going to be something like that. Let's try to apply that. This one's tricky. Here's an interesting twist. This is piece 9, which according to the instructions goes there, with piece 10 going there. Well, my piece 9 fits better where piece 10 goes, at least from a protecting the inside from the wheel. Yeah, that piece just doesn't fit very well there at all. So I'm not totally adhering that for now. I'm going to find piece 10 as well and test that one. Yep, that's going to work so much better. So lesson learned. Pieces 1 through 8 perfectly fine. Follow the instructions. Pieces 9 and 10 appear to be reversed on the instructions, unless I'm an idiot and I'm misreading this. But my trick is keep the bike in the same position as what you're doing. So 10 should be here, 9 should be there. And if I come around this way and look at this, it says 10 should be there, 9 should be there. That's not how it was on the printout. So I think these two are the wrong way round. But it now allows us to complete this process. This is where we'll actually use the heat gun, because these will be very hard to stick otherwise. Then you begin to squeegee out the air. It's going to be quite wet, so we'll also take the cloth, making sure there's no air bubbles. But I've got that in the wrong place. So we need to take it off. This one came off pretty easy. Adjust it just a little bit. Gain patience. You might find you do this multiple times before you get it really right and where you want it. Now what I'm finding, the edges are still peeling. Like this, you can see that that's peeling up. And there's a few peels there. That's where we use the heat gun to warm it up. Again, remembering always to move from the center out so you don't trap that air in there. Don't need much heat. And then from the other side. Still got wetness here. Actually, I'm kind of on the weld a bit there. But I found with the welds, if you do get up onto the welds, you might want to reapply heat a couple of times. I find warming it up really does help. But again, be careful not to overheat it. Take your time. Actually, what I'm seeing there is not so much that it's on the welds, but there's actually a stamp which is leaving an air bubble. This one I'm not so happy about. So actually I'm going to re-peel this and redo it. Wet it down to help it peel off. Another trick. Don't trim your fingernails too short. Having some fingernails is useful. Yes, be gentle. Take your time. I've never done a RideWrap before. So if I can do it, you can probably do it. Right, I'm going to reposition this and try to get a more even gap around the pivot as well. These small pieces can be quite challenging. This is why some people say it takes them like 4 to 7 hours to do. I say my first 8 pieces took me probably 2.5 hours the first night, and then I'm coming back to it now. Right, I think that was my worst one yet. Got just a bit of edge contamination on that one, and I can't get rid of it. So lesson learned, don't try to film while putting RideWrap on. So I'm gonna switch off for now. I'll come back towards the end. I'll give you any more lessons that I've learned. So I've completed the RideWrap. It took me 4 days, a couple of hours each evening to do it. There's 22 pieces in total. The biggest gotcha I found beyond what I posted earlier, or what I mentioned earlier, was related to the head tube. This head tube is not straight, and when I put the wrap around it, I managed to get a couple of wrinkles in it that I was unable to remove. It's not perfect. Nice. That's not actually that's just a reflection. But there's a wrinkle there. There's wrinkles here. Again, probably not going to be noticeable. I think the trick to doing this is to warm up the... Do it in order. I didn't do it in order. I watched many videos that said, put this on kind of in place before you do the top tube and the down tube. But actually, that's a bad idea. In hindsight, don't do that. Follow the instructions on Orbea, which is to do the top piece first, then do the down tube, then the head tube, because the down tube goes in real easy because you can line it up on the screw bolts. The top is definitely more tricky, but then when you've got that, you've got the lines to align with. Mine's a bit on the large side here, but what you can do, you can heat the top, heat the steerer tube. Was I calling it top tube earlier? Well, heat the steerer tube area, make it malleable, and then kind of stretch it to fit around this curve, and that will probably eliminate the possibility of wrinkles in it, and then set it in place. So that's really my trip. Definitely worth doing it, even though I've got a couple of flaws. It's only going to be really me that knows they're there. This was my first time wrapping. I think it makes the bike a lot more protected. It looks awesome. It hasn't dulled the paint at all, and everything really glows. So RideWrap out of Canada, good product, well worth the money. Hopefully should protect the bike for a long time. See you on another ride.